Welcome viewers, this is your host Roslyn Odhiambo on Skills versus the Midwife. Before we continue with our lesson today, I would like to encourage you to like and subscribe for more content. Now, we start off from where we left the other session. This is the patogram. As you can see, we had done part 1, and part 1 entailed the fetal features. And if we can remind ourselves the fetal features, we talked about the fetal heart rate. We also talked about the amniotic fluid. We further talked about the molding and also the descent. So today we will go into the maternal features. Listen carefully. So now, when you look at this chart, when you look at this patogram, you realize that this section here where we have the cervix, that is now where we plot the cervical dilatation, is indicated from 0 to 10. All right, so we all understand that cervical dilatation normally is from 0 to 10 centimeters. We need to understand that when the cervix is fully dilated, it's usually at 10 centimeters. Then further into this chart, all right, into this tool, when you look at this part here, we have an alert line and an action line. So that simply means normally we don't start our patogram at 0 centimeter dilatation. We start our patogram at 4 centimeter dilatation. Why? We normally have the latent phase and the active phase. When we are monitoring our women, the women in labor, we normally start our patogram at the active phase, which is 4 centimeters and above. To minimize interventions that are not necessary, we don't start the patogram below 4 centimeters. And as you can see, the patogram is already put or already organized in such a way that the alert line is actually starting at the 4 centimeter mark. Now, why do we have these two lines? The action line simply means there is need to take action because the labor progress is not taking a good course. And therefore, anything that we chart in this section where we have the cervical dilatation, if it goes beyond the alert line, then we have to be on alert, because it simply means that our labor is either taking too long or is not taking a good course as we expected. So let's talk about the cervical dilatation from that understanding. And if we have, let me give a scenario, if we have a cervical dilatation of maybe 4 centimeter. So what do? You come at the 4 centimeter mark and you put an X. That is just an example. Now, as we proceed, I'm going to show you how to start off a patogram. For today, we are going to chart on the very first line. But as we come back, we are going to realize that for us to chart, where do we put our time? The place we put our time is guided by where the cervical dilatation is. By where the cervical dilatation is. So that if our cervical dilatation is at 6 centimeters, then we move with that 6 centimeters up to the alert line and we drop down up to where we have the part written hours. And therefore, if you're starting your patogram at 10 a.m., the line that you've dropped with from 6 centimeters is what you come with and write down where you have the section of the hours 10 a.m. So it is not haphazardly done. When you're starting off your patogram, you don't randomly place the time. The time is guided by where the cervical dilatation is. Let's continue. So how do we chart the cervical dilatation? We use an X. I hope that is well understood. Just a reminder, cervical dilatation is normally charted every 4 hourly. So that means what? Whenever you're performing your vaginal exam, you perform it every 4 hourly. Let's proceed. So I've explained the part where we have the time, all right? So the time is, you just indicate what time did you start charting that patogram. Is it 10 a.m.? Is it 12 a.m.? Is it whatever time you put it there? Let's continue. Let's move down to this section where we have the contractions. Now, here it is well written, contractions per 10 minutes. Now, what do we chart here? What we chart in this section is the duration and frequency of the uterine contractions. Duration and frequency of the uterine contractions. And that simply means for duration and frequency, let's start with duration. Every time we are actually taking the record for the uterine contractions, we are at the bedside where the mother is. And therefore, it is important for you to note, normally we chart contractions in seconds. So when you say how long does a contraction take? You're counting it in seconds. Then duration, then frequency simply means that how many of those contractions are within 10 minutes. I'll come again. When you say frequency, you're simply saying how many of those contractions are charted within a span of 10 minutes. Now, when I say that we chart contractions in seconds, let me enlighten you on an aspect here. So now, if maybe, for example, we have classifications, we have mild, we have moderate, and we have strong contractions. So how do we chart mild, how do we chart moderate, and how do we chart strong? For mild, we chart using dots. For moderate, we chart using lines. And for strong, we totally shade the box. So when you're ready to start charting the contraction, you are on the mother's bedside. You are observing the abdomen. You can even put your hand on top of the abdomen so that you can be sure the time duration that the contraction will last as you're looking at your watch. So you started off, let's pick an example. We've started off at 9 a.m. We've started off at 9 a.m. I'm at the mother's bedside. And we have said we are going to count the number of contractions within 10 minutes. So I'm going to start counting the contractions between 9 and 9:10. How many contractions am I going to have? And that is what I'm going to chart there. Now, come back to the chart. Look at this chart. We have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that simply means we are charting contractions. How many are they? Now, it's unlikely for us to have more than 5 contractions within 10 minutes. Otherwise, we will be diagnosing other problems or other issues. And therefore, it is good for us to note that this is actually the maximum. We actually rarely get to 4 even and above. So, how many contractions are we going to have? So that when we get the first contraction within the 10 minutes, we are going to chart it inside the first box, assuming our time is starting from this line. And then, how frequently do you chart the uterine contractions? So, if we started at 9 a.m., we will chart the next one after 30 minutes, which will be now 9:30. 9:30. So, I am at the mother's bedside. Let's do this practically. I am at the mother's bedside. I am taking the first contraction. I have started at 9 a.m. And I'm going to end the first set of contractions at 9:10. So, I am at the mother's bedside. The first contraction probably is a moderate one. Moderate, we chart with lines. So, you come to your chart and put lines. That is the first one within 10 minutes. The second one is also moderate. Ask yourself, am I still within 10 minutes? Yes, I am at 9:08, so I can take another contraction. Then go to the mother's bedside and do the same. I am getting moderate. Am I still between 9 and 9:10? Ask yourself that question. If your time has elapsed, now stop. And how long are you stopping for? You are stopping until the next 30 minutes elapses. Now, your next 30 minutes will not elapse at 9:40 as most of us will think. The next 30 minutes will be at 9:30. So that your interval remains after every 30 minutes from the time you started. So if you started at 9, your next interval will start at 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, 11:30, like that. So it is not 9 and then the next one is 9:40. No, it is 9, 9:30, 10, like that. So relax. This small box, remember what we say, it represents 30 minutes. So the next time I'm going to the bedside of the mother is at 9:30, so that I can chart the next set. So you can get maybe another moderate, and then another moderate, and then a strong contraction. For example, that is just an example. I hope we are together on contractions. So what have we said on contractions? Number 1, when you're charting contractions, you must note the frequency and duration. You are charting contractions every half hourly within 10 minutes. So how many contractions are you getting within 10 minutes so that you can chart going upwards? And remember, you can always cross-check with the uterine contraction scale, and we say for the mild, it will be charted with using dots, and normally mild will last less than 20 seconds. For moderate, it's charted using lines, and it will last between 20, okay, all right, 20 and above to 40 seconds. And for strong, which is charted using completely shading inside the box, all right, will normally last 40 seconds and above. So let's move to the next section. We have done the contractions, but remember, we are going to do this practically. We are going to chart this patogram practically once we have finished all the sections that we are discussing. All right, so let's move to this section written oxytocin, and it is written also down here, drops per minute. So oxytocin is used for different purposes in labor ward. And one of the reasons we use oxytocin would be to induce labor, so induction of labor. And another reason we can actually use oxytocin is to augment labor. So I hope we understand the differences between the two. Induction of labor simply means we don't have any contractions, so we want to actually initiate the process. And augmentation simply means that yes, we have contractions, but they are not as strong as we expect, so that we can actually have the baby delivered. So most of the time, you'll realize that we will augment the labor. We will augment the labor, and that is why we will chart it here. Okay? So now, oxytocin, we normally give it in the concentration in international units. So we have 5 international units. We can give in 10 international units. But the recommendation is we normally always want to start with the lower dosages. Okay, so we will want to start with 5 international units. So if that is the case, which normally and mostly applies to primigravidas, all right, then you will come to this section written oxytocin. So what is the concentration of the oxytocin inside that box, depending on what time you've actually started doing what? Administering the oxytocin infusion. Remember, it's an infusion. It's administered in normal saline. So then you come and indicate 5 international units where you've actually given it. 5 international units in this box. This section written oxytocin UL. 5 international units, that is the concentration. And then how do you regulate it? How do you regulate the oxytocin, therefore, infusion? So what you will do is that we normally still, even for the oxytocin infusion, we normally still, the frequency of administering will still be within half hourly. What do I mean by that? So if I started the infusion at 10 a.m., all right, the next time, if at all there is need that I need to change anything, then will be in the next 30 minutes. Let me explain that. So I've started infusing at 10 a.m. and here we have this section indicated drops per minute. So I will start with 10 drops per minute. Okay? So you look at your watch, regulate that infusion to run at 10 drops per minute. After 30 minutes, then you regulate upwards so that you have 20 drops per minute. So what are you indicating in the boxes? We have 5 international units here, and I have started regulating at 10. So indicate 10. After 30 minutes, if at all you added, okay, there is need for you to add, so you indicate 20. After another 30 minutes, no change, mother hasn't delivered, 30, 40. So that is how you indicate this section for drops per minute. Of course, at a point will reach whereby now the team will have to make a decision, and most especially after 60 drops per minute. All right, so what did we say? For the oxytocin infusion, you start at 10 drops per minute. Most of the time you realize the concentration will have to start with 5 international units, and then you add the drops 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Let me talk about this section. Remember, we are doing the maternal parameters, all right? So we have the pulse, we have the blood pressure, and we also have the temperature. So for the pulse, okay, for the pulse, here is the pulse. So pulse is normally done the way we so you can do the normal way. We normally take the pulse, and once you take the pulse is actually taken and repeated half hourly. What about the blood pressure? I'll show you how to chart those. Blood pressure is repeated 4 hourly. Temperature is taken 2 hourly. So let's see how we chart that. So for the BP, let me give a scenario if it is 130/70. So just come to the 130 mark. 130 mark, put an arrow on the 130 mark, and then go to the 70 mark, put another arrow on the 70 mark, like that, and then join that line all the way downwards. Then if we are charting the pulse, so the pulse is, for example, 90 beats per minute. So just go to the 90 beat per minute mark and chart using a dot. Okay, what about temperature? Temperature is taken 2 hourly. So if our temperature, for example, is 36 degrees centigrade, come to the temperature section. Remember the time that you are actually observing this and write 36 degrees centigrade. After the next 2 hours, if it is 38, so this is the first hour, the second hour, and then we write 30. For example, it is 37 degrees centigrade, you write like that. Okay? When we come back in the next session, we'll finish off the remaining parameters. Thank you.